Namaskar and Adab to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from your very own channel Astro Assurance. Many times when we look at our careers, we sometimes get little disappointed that our careers are not taking the trajectory that we hoped we would be able to go on, or that we desire, or we think that we also deserve. And hence sometimes the struggle goes on for many years, and many a times when we hit a roadblock, we do think that are we in the right career? Should I continue in this particular trajectory, in this line, in this industry, or should I do something else? Some people, while the time is still ripe, may take a decision of trying to chase something that they love to do, rather than try to do something which they feel is safer from a financial perspective, from a career perspective. And so they jump into the bandwagon of those people who will want to follow their dreams, follow something that they like to do, something they love to do, and because they are very good at it, many times they also excel, and because they are doing it with a passion, sometimes they also do it better than those people who are in that line more because of a career or for the money. So nothing will be able to better excellence when it comes directly from the heart itself, when it is also supported by the strong innate desire, the passion that you do something with. And so my suggestion is that if you want to look at something, especially from your career point of view, whether you will get success in the future also, presently you may be enjoying a fair degree of success, but maybe there is a certain area where you can get larger success, higher success which you may not even have dreamt of. Are you aware of those opportunities, those probabilities that your horoscope may have given you, but you have not even bothered to look at that side, that perspective, because you're too happy, too contented, too satisfied where you are? So my suggestion is then please relook at your horoscopes and also deep dive into the Navamsa or the Navmansh chart or the D9 chart. Because what the Lagna does is, Lagna will give you a 30 to 40,000 of perspective, whether your career is going in the right direction, what you should be doing, what you should try and avoid doing, what your strengths are, what Raj Yogas or doshas you have, which may make certain things possible, certain things not possible. However, the Navmansh or the D9 or the Navamsa, however you term it as, that will tell you whether whatever your innate desire is, what it is, what are your secret hidden strengths, and what are opportunities which probably are given to you but you are not following, you are not chasing. So the Navmansh or the D9 gives you more clarity. Now I have said in many videos, when I say, sometimes people misconstrue what I say. When I say that you should not look at houses in the Navmansh, I don't mean that you should not see houses in the Navmansh at all. What I mean is, see the houses in the D1 first, and then see whether what the Navmansh is saying is complementing what is being said in the D1. Only then they work in tandem, they work as a team. And hence you see the houses in the D1 first, and then see whether the Navmansh is complementing it or not, or whether the Navmansh is giving you more strength. Or also saying that while at a 40,000 feet level something may look very good or may not look bad, not look very good, but at the deeper level, when you go down at the 10,000 feet level or even closer, the Navmansh will tell you whether there is more strength to that placement or less strength to that placement. But the Navmansh will not completely overshadow or will not supplement the D1. So please understand that. So similarly, to see whether you can chase your passion, you can chase your innate desire, also look at the Navmansh, see the strengths it is giving you, but also see that it should complement or work in tandem with the D1. So if your D1 is showing completely no strength at all in a certain placement, then see at a deeper level, at a nakshatra level, at a yoga level, and synergies in the Navmansh, because you may probably be wrong. The Navmansh may be complementing the D1 slightly to a high level, adding strength to the planets which you are not able to see correctly in the D1 chart. So it is about a correct analysis of D1 rather than incorrect analysis of the D1 and looking at only the Navmansh. So today I am going to talk about how you can look into the Navmansh at a deeper level, at a finer level, and understand certain placements and how those complement and add strength to certain placements in your D1, and then together they can give you mind-boggling success, huge success at a world level, and make you superstars. Maybe overnight, sometimes over a period of time. So what I want to do is to talk about two such examples. Both of these people are celebrated chefs, those people who cook very well, worked in restaurants, may also have some degrees, some qualifications backing them, learned cooks, trained cooks or chefs, and they have made an acclaim for themselves through books, through the social media, through TV shows. So firstly, I am going to jump into the horoscope of a gentleman by the name of Gordon Ramsay. Hell's Kitchen, Master Chef, innumerable TV shows, books which have given or added to the already qualification that made him the star. So let's jump into Gordon Ramsay's horoscope first, followed by another celebrity chef which is more closer to home, closer to India in the domestic world, and see how their D1 first gives some direction to what their passions go in a certain direction, and then the Navmansh explodes that particular competence and makes him who the superstar he is. So let's jump into the horoscope of Gordon Ramsay to see how one can follow the passions given to us, the strength given to us through our D9 or the Navmansh horoscope. Now this is Gordon Ramsay's horoscope. He was born on the 8th of November 1966 in a place called Johnston in the UK, and his estimate time of birth is 6 hours 5 minutes in the evening, 6:05 p.m. and his horoscope ascendant is that of Gemini, ruled by Mercury, and Mercury also rules his 4th house, and Mercury is placed in his 6th house in the sign of Scorpio, and hence his life has taken a trajectory of lots of ups and downs, lot of challenges, lots of issues also, and also hidden enemies, people who are working behind his back. And because Mercury is also retrograde in Scorpio sign, and hence he faced challenges, and ultimately he got a lot of success, which was aided by other placements in his horoscope. Secondly, his nakshatra, birth nakshatra, is the nakshatra of Uttara Falguni, ruled by Sun, and hence Sun becomes a very, very important planet for his horoscope. Now though Sun has gone into its debilitation sign in the 5th house, but here because the birth nakshatra is ruled by Sun and Sun has gone into the 5th house, which it naturally rules because of its ownership of the sign of Leo, hence Sun retains a lot of strength in this horoscope. So in spite of Sun showing its debilitation in the 5th house, Sun retains a lot of strength. Secondly, when you look at his 10th lord Jupiter has gone into the 2nd house of food and kitchen, and in an exaltation sign of Cancer. So 10th lord going into an exaltation sign in the home, in the kitchen, and Jupiter being the guru, the master. So being somebody who taught, who did a show, who became a guru or master in the kitchen, in food, gave him the adulation and the success that he has got. The second is the planet which rules the 2nd house, Moon, gets into the 4th house in the domestic life, in the home, but in the sign of Virgo, and hence if you know that he is not somebody who shows that he cares a lot. He will nurture you, he will support you, he will support your talent, but he is also very, very vitriolic in his speech, both because Mercury is retrograde, which is the planet of communication, gone into the 6th house of inimical forces. So he comes across as an enemy, though he is actually trying to improve you, but also in the sign of Scorpio. And so Moon going into Virgo means he tries to nurture you or support you, or tries to improve you through a very perfectionist oriented approach, and hence he is also somebody who is very, very abusive. However, if you see Saturn in the 9th house shows that he had a problem with the gurus that he faced in his life. But because Saturn in his own sign, in the sign of Aquarius, which also is about the 11th house, and so through his gurus, what learning he got, he also conquered the world, he also conquered society, he also conquered the world through the learning that he got from his gurus. And Saturn and the consistency that Saturn gave him was also the one which also made him the super success, because Saturn is placed in the 9th house of fate and luck, and the original ruler of the 9th house, Jupiter, has gone into the 2nd house. So through his learning, through his gurus, he becomes a master guru in the kitchen and shares his knowledge on the social platform. Why the social platform? Because Mars, which is the most important for a chef who's working in a kitchen, Mars is also in the fiery sign of Leo, and Mars is placed in the nakshatra of Purva Falguni, and Purva Falguni is ruled by Venus. So we know that Venus is very important for food, Mars is very important for fire, for the kitchen. Mars placed in the fiery sign of Leo in the nakshatra of Purva Falguni, ruled by Venus, and Venus going into its own sign in the 5th house. The 5th house is the house of following what your passions are, doing what you like to do, doing what you love to do. And so Gordon Ramsay, though he entered the food industry or the cooking industry or being a chef by accident, joining hotel management and then working as a sous chef and then ultimately rising to the top, but through the kitchen, through food, where Mars supports him being in the nakshatra of Venus, and Venus goes into the 5th house in the sign of following the dreams and your passions. However, the most important nakshatra for him is the nakshatra of Vishaka, because 3 planets are placed in the nakshatra of Vishaka. Sun is in the nakshatra of Vishaka, Venus is in the nakshatra of Vishaka, and Ketu is also in the nakshatra of Vishaka. And who rules Vishaka? Jupiter, the guru, the master, who also rules his 10th house. And hence, all the 3 planets, Sun, Venus as well as Ketu, supporting or giving strength to Jupiter, the master, the guru in the kitchen. So he became the master, the guru, the teacher in the kitchen in exaltation. And Rahu going into his 11th house in fiery Aries, and Rahu aspecting Mars in again fiery Leo. So Rahu adding strength to Mars, Mars also aspecting his 10th house while also ruling the 11th house. So Mars rules the 11th house and aspects the 10th house of career, and the career lord, 10th house lord, goes into the 2nd house in the kitchen. So extremely powerful denotations. Now let's see how the Navmansh is supporting what the D1 is saying. Now when you go to his Navmansh chart, you will see here the 2nd lord of kitchen, food, goes into the Lagna itself and placed with Rahu in a very, very strong Angakaraka yoga, fiery yoga, and hence the kitchen lord going into the Lagna, and hence through food, through the kitchen, through the restaurant, he became the super success that he is. And here the Lagna is ruled by Venus itself. Mars goes into the sign ruled by Venus. In fact, the most Trikona sign of Venus, and Venus at Sun and Ketu now go into the exaltation sign of Sun in the sign of Aries. And so the debilitation which the Sun was showing in the Lagna chart, but retaining strength, and that's why I keep saying that the Navmansh cannot overpower the D1, but in the D1 also Sun is placed in the 5th house and in a powerful nakshatra, meaning Moon is placed in the nakshatra of the Sun, which is Uttara Falguni. So the horoscope, the D1 itself has a very, very strong Sun, but it is showing that at a final level in the Navmansh, Sun goes into the Aries sign in its exaltation sign, again placed with Venus, and Venus and Sun are in mutual aspect with Rahu, Mars and Jupiter. And here Mars and Venus are exchanging signs and so supporting each other, complementing each other. So the second lord of kitchen going into the Lagna, which gives him the reputation of a master restaurateur. Jupiter itself placed in the Lagna, the master guru placed in the Lagna. And here the 10th lord moon again going into the 4th house, and in the D1 also moon is placed into the 4th house. So very, very powerful placement there. Again Saturn in the 9th house in the Lagna chart, Saturn again in the 9th house in the Navmansh chart, which shows that through his gurus in the sign of communication in Gemini. So he learned from his gurus and then used his learning to communicate and won the world, because his Mercury is gone into the 12th house in its exaltation sign. So through his communication, through his coming on the media platform, coming through various shows, he got super success. So in his Navmansh, Mercury goes into his exaltation sign, Sun goes into his exaltation sign, Rahu and Mars in a strong Angakaraka yoga, mutual exchange of sign between Mars and Venus, and the ruling nakshatra being that of Sun. However, the strongest nakshatra being the nakshatra of Vishaka, ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter going into the Lagna. So very, very powerful denotation which shows that the kitchen is coming to the Lagna and the master chef, the master guru is coming to the Lagna. So in the Navmansh it is clearly showing that through the kitchen, through the restaurant, through the fire, explosive success comes to Gordon Ramsay in following his passion. Why again following his passion? The 5th lord Saturn, which is the strong yoga karaka for a Libra ascendant native, which the Navmansh is showing, goes into the 9th house. So one trine lord going into the other trine house in the sign of communication, and that lord going into exaltation sign. And secondly, Saturn also aspecting both his Saturn also aspecting with the third aspect, the 11th house ruled by Sun, and Sun going into exaltation. Saturn also aspecting the third house ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter going into the Lagna, and Saturn also aspecting the 6th house, which is again ruled by Jupiter, and the 6th lord Jupiter also going into the Lagna. And so his Navmansh is giving more power to his D1 chart, showing that if one follows his dream, his passion in the field of kitchen, in the field of restaurants, then superlative success will come to this gentleman. The next horoscope that I want to bring about, which I told you is more closer to home, here I am talking about the chef and restaurateur Sanjeev Kapoor, the person who's got very, very famous for the television program Khana Khazana. Got many awards, got the Padma Shri given to him by the government of India, multiple awards around the world. Not that Gordon Ramsay has got less, so many of his restaurants has got the Michelin star also. And Sanjeev Kapoor back in India became very, very famous through his program, through his books, through his company, which is named after the Indian spice turmeric, and also now has got worldwide success. So let's deep dive into the horoscope of Sanjeev Kapoor, another chef, another restaurateur, how he has followed his passion and got the super success which he desired and he deserved. Now when you look into the horoscope of Sanjeev Kapoor, you will see that his horoscope in the D1 is the Mool Trikona sign of Venus, which is Libra. And if you remember, Gordon Ramsay's Navmansh was a Libra ascendant. Now Saturn has gone into the 5th house, again a house of following your passion. Gordon Ramsay's Saturn was also in Aquarius in his Lagna chart, in his D1 chart. Saturn is a very strong yoga karaka for Libra sign, and Saturn, ruler of the 4th house and 5th house, and place in the 5th house, gives a strong credence to his passion, to follow his passion, but will give him success over a period of time and not instantly. Secondly, where is his second lord Mars? His second lord Mars is placed in the 6th house, but with Sun and the Moon in a very strong Chandramangal yoga. But once again, what is his birth nakshatra? Moon is placed in the nakshatra of Purva Bhadrapada, ruled by Jupiter, the master, the guru, and Jupiter has gone into the sign of Aries, placed with Mercury and aspecting the Lagna. Secondly, Rahu is placed in the 9th house, again in Gemini sign, the sign of communication, and is aspecting the Lagna. Jupiter also aspects with its 5th aspect the 11th house. So again, very very strong 11th house denotation. I have said this multiple times. If your 11th house is not strong, if your 11th lord is not very strong, then you may not get the super success. So here Jupiter is aspecting the 11th house. Saturn is placed in the natural 11th house of Aquarius in a very very strong Yoga Karaka placement, in the Raj Yoga placement. Jupiter goes into the sign of Aries, but in the nakshatra of Ashwini, ruled by Ketu, and Ketu has gone into the sign of Sagittarius, and through that also is giving more strength to Jupiter. Now the third house is the house of communication also, and the third lord Jupiter goes into the nakshatra of Ketu but aspects the Lagna. And where is the second lord? Mars, the kitchen house, the kitchen lord, the fire house, the restaurant lord, going into the sign of Pisces, ruled by Jupiter. But which nakshatra is Mars placed in? Mars is placed in the nakshatra of Uttara Bhadrapada, ruled by Saturn. And so Saturn, which is placed in the 5th house of following your dreams, following your passion, in a very very strong Raj Yoga, and Saturn aspects Jupiter in the sign of Aries. Saturn aspects the 11th house, and Saturn also aspects the 2nd house of food, restaurant, the kitchen. And where is the ascendant placed? The ascendant is placed in the nakshatra of Vishaka. Which planet rules Vishaka? Jupiter rules Vishaka. So the ascendant nakshatra is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter aspects the Lagna. Mars, the ruler of the 2nd house of kitchen fire, placed in the sign of Jupiter. So the guru, the master, in the field of fire, kitchen, restaurant, gives him success, especially with Rahu also aspecting the Lagna, and Venus, which rules the Lagna, also going into the 8th house in its own sign. But which sign does Venus go into? The sign of Taurus. Which house does Taurus rule? Again, the 2nd house of food and the kitchen. But is there a signification of going into the 8th house? The 8th house is complementary to the 2nd house, because the 2nd house is prepared food, preparing food in the kitchen. But the 8th house is what you get from under the ground, from below the ground. What is the name of the company which Sanjeev Kapoor owns? The company's name is Turmeric. And turmeric, we know, comes from below the ground, and he is also known as the king of spices. Where do most of the spices come from? From below the ground also. And so it is a strong connection between the 2nd house and the 8th house. 8th house is also food items which come from below the ground. All agriculture produce comes from below the ground. Now let's look at his Navamsa. In his Navamsa, we see that Venus has gone directly into the Lagna itself while ruling the 2nd house. What was something similar in Gordon Ramsay's horoscope? In the Navmansh, his 2nd lord Mars, his Navmansh is that of Libra. Let me bring up Gordon Ramsay's chart. In Gordon Ramsay's Navamsa, you see the 2nd lord Mars goes into the Lagna in the sign of Libra. So the 2nd lord going into the ascendant. Now in Sanjeev Kapoor's chart, I have come back to Sanjeev Kapoor's horoscope. The 2nd lord Venus again goes into the Lagna. So the kitchen lord, or the house of the kitchen, or the food, the planet connected with food, Venus gets into the Lagna. In Gordon Ramsay's horoscope, the planet which was ruling fire had gone into the Lagna. So here again very very powerful denotation. Second, Jupiter goes into the 2nd house and in the sign of Taurus, which is a very very strong denotation of a master, of a guru going into the kitchen, going into the food. Now where is his 10th lord Saturn? Saturn is both the 10th lord and the 11th lord, and gone again in the 9th house in the sign of learning. And so Saturn has again gone into the 9th house. And if you remember, in Gordon Ramsay's horoscope also, in his Navamsa, in his Navmansh chart, Saturn was in the 9th house. Let me bring up his horoscope. Here is Gordon Ramsay's horoscope with Saturn in the 9th house in his Navmansh chart. Okay, once more reverting to Sanjeev Kapoor's horoscope. So Saturn goes into the 9th house. Now in Gordon Ramsay's horoscope, Navamsa horoscope, Venus ruled his 8th house. And here in Sanjeev Kapoor's Navmansh chart, Mars rules the 8th house and is gone into the 8th house while also ruling the Lagna. So what is the Navmansh chart doing here? In his D1 chart, Venus rules the Lagna and goes into the 8th house, and in his Navmansh chart, Mars rules the Lagna and goes into the 8th house in its own sign. Venus goes into the Lagna. So strong connection between food, underground spices, kitchen and the Lagna, and getting name fame through the Lagna. Secondly, Rahu directly goes into the 10th house in the Navmansh chart here. And in the Navmansh, Saturn aspects the 11th house of name fame. Saturn also aspects the sign of Gemini. In Gordon Ramsay's horoscope, Saturn was placed in the sign of Gemini. Here Saturn is placed in the sign of Sagittarius, which is the Mool Trikon sign of Jupiter, and aspects Gemini ruled by Mercury. And here Mercury goes into the 5th house. So communication in the field of what is one's passion, following one's dream, is the placement of Mercury. And Saturn aspects the 6th house, the sign of Virgo, the Mool Trikon sign of Mercury. And so a strong denotation of Saturn getting connected with the 5th house in the Lagna chart, and Saturn also getting connected with the 5th house indirectly through aspecting the Virgo sign, whose Lord Mercury goes into the 5th house. And Moon being placed once again in the 4th house. In Gordon Ramsay's horoscope also, Moon was placed in the 4th house in his Navmansh chart, and in Sanjeev Kapoor's horoscope, again in the Navmansh chart, Moon is again placed in its own sign and in the 4th house. And the birth nakshatra is ruled by Jupiter. So friends, if you follow your dreams, if you follow your passion, or at least if you check and deep dive into the Navmansh and see whether the Navmansh is supporting the D1 or adding strength to slightly different denotations, which may be there ingrained in your horoscope. If you just look deep dive, if you look closely and see the complementing strength between the D1 and the Navmansh chart, the Navmansh could be telling you something more, giving you added credit for a certain aspect of career which you may not have looked at, though deep down you know that this area is something which you could definitely look at or pursue, and maybe you will get name, fame and super success in that. So my suggestion is, look into your horoscopes once again and deep dive and understand, are you missing some things which you can look out more deeper. See whether the Navmansh, along with complementing some of the placements in the D1, is showing you way to follow your passions, to follow something that your dreams could truly give you super success in. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation for me, please reach out to me with the link given below. Until some other time, some other video, this is your friend, astrologer and guide Irfan signing off. Ciao.